So today we're going to talk about a little bit of vocabulary, complementary angles, supplementary angles, and vertical angles as we go about doing this. Some things that you got to realize is that complementary angles are two angles that sum to equal 90 degrees. So a lot of times you can be given a picture, and if you see this right angle, usually denoted by a box, we know that's 90, and that together these two angles should make 90 degrees. Now, I'm not a stickler about you using equations all of the time. Just make sure that you're showing your work. So if I'm solving this equation, T52, I would show my work in that way. But if you're someone who says, I look at this and I see 90, there's already 38 there, your work could look something like this. Okay, it doesn't need to be in an equation all the time, unless an equation is just easier to use. When we have a simple x or a simple y, it might not be the easiest way to use it as an equation, but it's up to you. So then we put it in there, and let's make sure 52 and 38 make 90. My calculator, looking good. Supplementary angles are where you have two angles, and we've really touched on a lot of this, that equal 180. And we discussed this already, that they make a line and that they make this half circle and that we make them 180. But the vocabulary, I want to make sure that we're talking about it. It can be called supplementary angles, or it can be called a linear pair. Two angles that make 180. And again, you can make an equation, y plus 125 equals 180, or you can type in a calculator 180. You already have the 125. So I think you have 55 left, 55 degrees left to be that angle over here. And in geometry, we're going to write all over our figures, so it's not something I want you to keep everything nice and neat. Definitely write all over them. Our last one is vertical angles, and honestly, you don't need it. But I do want you to know the vocabulary for it. So if I were to kind of highlight a line here, okay, the lines don't have to be straight, horizontal. They could be diagonal as well. If that's a line, these two would make a half circle, or 180 degrees. So G and 27 should make 180. You might have to tilt your head or turn a paper. You don't have to use an equation if you don't want to. Your work is going to be the same thing to try to figure out G. 180 minus 27. 160, 150, 153. And we can kind of go around this figure all the way. And let's see, yellow highlighter. Let's try a pink highlighter now so we can keep them different. So technically, this is also a line. And this is also a half circle. That should make 180. So E in 153 should make 180. And we can work our way all the way around this to try to figure out what each piece is. 27. We can use a highlighter again. Let's use a different color we didn't use before to see the connection between 27 and F in there. And hopefully you're starting to see the pattern. It's going to be the same exact thing here, except using F plus 27 equals 180. So F should also equal 153. Couple of things all the way around this should equal 360 degrees. So if we were to add up 27 and 153 and another 27 and another 153, we should end up with 360 degrees total. That's part one. And part two, let me see if I can lower that so you can see my writing, is that the angles across from each other are the same. So I took off all that highlighting because it would definitely distract us. And I'll add just one little bit of highlighting then. Take a look at this angle over here and this angle over here. These two angles are across from each other, and it doesn't happen when anything special occurs. It's just when two lines are drawn, the angles across from each other are called vertical angles, and they're always the same. And if you notice, the same thing holds true with the other ones. These bigger angles are also vertical angles of a different size, 153, but they're the same, 153 for each. What I'm hoping to do is try to combine the two things that we were learning for the past 2 days. Can we combine these ratio problems with also the definitions that we were just talking about here? So two supplementary angles would be that they sum up to 180. And we're just sketching it. One would be the 7 and one would be the 5. We try to figure out that common factor. And remember, we said the common factor has got to be the same, so we could call it a variable like x. Same thing holds true where they make a straight line. Supplementary adds up to equal 180. So we end up with 12 x's equals 180. And be careful, the question says find the measure of the two angles. So 7 times 15 and 5 times 15. And double check, does it make sense? Supplementary adds to 180 to 75, and 105 add to 180. Looking good. Try another one. Complementary angles in this ratio. Remember, complementary is where they make a right angle. One of them's 10. One of them's 5. We don't know the common factor, but we know it's going to be the same. And be careful when we make this equation, we get used to that 180, but we're only using 90 for this one. And check and make sure that this is making sense. So this angle would be 10 times 6, and this angle would be 5 times 6, which happens to make 90. Looking good. Found the measure of the two angles.